Do you remember your first iPhone? I don't. This thing is only 2 years old, but I'm sure some of you have fond memories of whatever your first smartphone was. I'm just an old fart that didn't get his own cell phone until maybe 12 or 13 years old, back in the mid-2000s, and it was more of a Motorola flip phone with such amazing games as Snake and very slow chess. I was also one of the lucky few that decided to get a Windows phone, but that's the story for another day. The point is, Angry Birds used to be king app. So much so that its presence is still recognized on the kids' clothing aisle of your local Walmart, I think. I'll have to check once I'm back in the US, I'm not really sure. But really, this franchise is huge, with one base game and 5,000 sequels and spin-offs, also sporting a TV and Netflix series, several toys, and of course, web content. Biggest thing to come from Finland since Darude Sandstorm. So of course, they made a movie about it, but what does the movie say? I'm gonna ask the tough questions on this corporate, churned out children's movie and see what it's really about on How Furry Is It? Here's a quick TLDR of my first impressions after watching this film. Well, that's not entirely true, but the opportunity was too good to pass up. There was a lot of money put into this movie, judging by how clean the animation is. This is a Sony and Columbia Pictures backed project after all, so while I expect lots of money being thrown at a project like this, I didn't really expect the amount of detail for just their feathers and such. It reminds me of how there were reports that multiple Zootopia characters had like 1 million fully rendered individual hairs, sometimes more. I think Rovio or Sony saw that and thought, hey, we can do that too. And so they did. The film is also vibrant and colorful. There's a good amount of weight and impact with action sequences and sections of slapstick silliness, and I should mention the little background details that even got a chuckle out of me on second and third viewings. I say this as I basically watched these movies multiple times since I gotta edit these videos, see which clips to use, watch them over and over again to see, is this really what I want to show? Does this really convey what I want to say? The jokes in this film are extremely hit and miss, but most of them are in the middle, just eh. With a few being on the very ends of that spectrum. Does it count as a spectrum if it's meant to be a strict dichotomy of hit or miss? I don't know. Basically, very brief seconds of gold, and then at least 2 or 3 agonizing sequences that drag on for far too long, and might be clinically proven to kill brain cells. Don't worry, they're replaceable, like your kidneys. Maybe it's just Finnish humor that I'm not getting, but the film throws lots of, butts at you. There's enough bird ass and pig ass shaking in front of you, daring to ask you if it's funny, that I wonder if it's like Tarantino's foot fetish. There's also a scene, I should mention, where an anthropomorphic bald eagle, played by Peter Dinklage, pees into a pond for 48 seconds straight. The joke is that some of the characters swam in and drank that pee. 48 seconds might not sound like a lot of time until you have to watch it in full, with nothing but the sounds of bladder juice splishing into water and the other characters' disgusted remarks and reactions to fill in the dead air. Suffice to say, it felt like hours. Now I'm going to talk about music because thankfully it has nothing to do with taking a leak. There are 2 kinds of music in this film. Orchestral filler, that sounds like every other orchestral score in your generic kids movies, and popular music tracks that could have only been used because Sony licensed it to itself. I mean, basically. Now let's play a game. I want you to think of the first song that pops into your head when I describe a scene to you in this movie. Remember, you're a corporate marketing guru, and your taste in music can be categorized as 11pH. Pretty basic. So first, a character is introduced as either antisocial, rebellious, sarcastic, or cynical. He's different from the mold. Maybe he thinks everyone's out to get him. So, what 70s rock song do you use to convey this? Okay, prompt number 2. Said character is retreating back to his home and reflects on how he just wants to be loved and accepted, but society prevents him from doing so. bonus points if you guessed that it was the Limp Bizkit version of that song. Okay, here's a hard one. Prompt number 3. You want to show off your internet meme culture prowess and appease to the adults forced to watch this with their kids. Yes, the film does indeed rickroll you many years after it was funny. So, how'd you do? Well, doesn't matter. The music choice sucks. Case in point, I will talk about characters and plot a bit more in a short while, but for now, spoilers. Skip to this part of the video if you care about being spoiled. If not, stay where you are. Also, mobile users, I will post the timestamp in the comments and in the description so that you don't have to spam the comments. You're welcome. Now at first, I thought the main theme of this film was going to be something like the need for people to be happy and comfortable versus the need to be honest or genuine towards each other. Like the crux of Red's character is that he was an orphan, treated poorly, ostracized for having gigantic bushy eyebrows growing up, and now that he's a working adult, everyone sort of puts up with him, you know, because he's very bitter, although I think enough of the population seems to resent him so much that he lives in isolation basically. Truly, all he wants is to be appreciated and treated like everyone else treats one another, kind of like that Jim Carrey Grinch movie. Now, I'm not saying you can't borrow ideas from other movies because this does take that character background and spin it in a different direction. Instead of becoming the antagonist that later saved Christmas, here we have an anti-hero, I guess, that senses a threat from a sudden piggy invasion. Tries to gain insight from a has-been hero with a massive ego that doesn't really do much until closer to the climax of the film, to which our protagonist realizes that he has to save the island himself, along with his plucky new friends, and then comes out a hero a la Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It all depends on where you go with it and what your message is, and they lightly prod at the idea of genuineness over saving face and being happy, but I don't think there are any new discoveries being made by the townsfolk to be more open and honest with one another at the end of the film. They were just kind of proven wrong about the pig's intentions, and then put their entire trust into the one bird that saw through their phoniness. It's not even an I hate you, but you're the only bird capable of the job kind of mentality. More of a, we're sorry we didn't trust you, please help us, we're desperate. Also, we love you now. Then again, this probably isn't so much a story about overcoming feigned social harmony as it is just a grumpy bird figuring out that not everyone is actually out to get him and that he should actually be nice and not give in to his legit anger issues. And if you wanted to do a character piece, then, you know, cool, go with it. But then don't slap all of this background stuff about literally propagating the population of your island to not be angry with one another.
There's a new happiness exhibit at the Museum of Happiness that I'm dying to see.
Especially when there are moments of actual anger from characters outside of Red, before the piggy invasion. It's just kind of sloppy and half-baked in my opinion, but I guess I could say its message is, it's okay to be angry sometimes, just don't throw a tantrum or beat the shit out of an inanimate object. They definitely show their anger at the pig invaders as they're destroying their entire kingdom, that's for sure. While doing research on this movie, I found an article by The Atlantic that says there are messages about colonialism and consumerist culture, kind of like how Lego Movie was about conformity and consumerist culture. I'll just throw out a polite disagree because there are trace amounts of that if you're looking for it, but if you're a kid that just wants to watch a slapstick butt shaking in your face cartoon movie, then I don't think you'll get it. Spoilers over. Okay then, on to the fun part. Now we're gonna look at how furry this angry bird film be. I'll be using 3 metrics for this section of the video: cast, furriness, and relevancy. Let's start with cast, or the proportion of main characters and otherwise that be furry. Our main character is a red bird named Red. He's joined by a queer-coded, yes he is, trust me, motor-mouth yellow bird named Chuck. Like seriously, he's flamboyant and kind of has fantasies about bird butt, and not in a comedic way, like a attracted way. And a big black one that tends to literally blow up with anger named Bomb. I don't know if it's clear that the exploding part is like an actual explosion or if it's one gigantic fart. And if I can add, Red is vocally sarcastic and grumpy to the point that I was saying out loud to my screen, dude, shut up. You're not funny. You're not cool. Get a life. I might have run into this person once or twice in real life, the stoic cynic who is always vocal about their thoughts. They're not that fun to be around, in my opinion. Anyway, I don't have a clue when it comes to the mobile game's lore or its canon. I played the game casually for maybe a month, so I had to look up what all relevant characters appeared in this movie and how they related to the games. I guess the more notable main birds are the island's judge, jury, and executive branch, who is just two birds in a trench coat. We have a neurotically chipper yogi, not the bear, an actual yoga instructor. There's the other pink bird that shows up a lot in the promotional material for the app, but doesn't actually do that much in the film. Such is one of the roles of female characters in media, unfortunately. There's the strong silent type, who probably actually murdered someone. You know, not slapstick like dead. Kind of dark, actually, considering the otherwise whimsical tone. Probably there for the adults. I don't know. There's also the wizard eagle, but he kind of sucks, and I don't like him. I don't want to talk about him. We're moving on. Since it was made in part by Rovio, I can say that this is all faithful to whatever bare-bones story the mobile apps had. Regardless, the only species you'll see in this movie are anthropomorphic versions of the more rotund or whatever shape birds and pigs from the game. An entire cast of anthropomorphic animal characters means a rating of high for cast. Next is furriness, or how visually furry these characters look. The animators and other artists that worked on this film really put a lot of creativity when it came to the characters' looks, something I would say is a plus for this mediocre movie. They're all unique and well animated, and it adds to their furriness. Although the birds don't have specified species to base themselves off of, aside from Mighty Eagle, they're just bird characters with different personalities and shades of color. I might have to take points away from that, but I'm not using a point system anyway, and I don't think you have to use a specific real-life species to base your characters off of for them to be furries. I mean, just look at all the new fantasy and sci-fi characters that the fandom itself has come up with and have clung to in a surprising amount of popularity. I do wonder how these birds on Bird Island, that is what it's called, I think, became flightless in the first place, and why Mighty Eagle was such an exception. Probably could have been explored in the movie, I don't know. But I'm not gonna worry too much about that if the film doesn't worry about it either. That's a problem I run into with films sometimes. They have this magical world that could be fleshed out and explored, and even relate to their main characters, but the Bird Island setting is just vaguely tropical and carefree. Maybe I'm expecting too much from an Angry Birds movie, but I also said that about the Lego movie and was proven wrong. But let's get back to the characters. So, all the characters in this film are right in that sweet spot between animal and humanoid, very distinct to where a child can figure out what animal they are, but with hands, arms, legs, and other features that make them furry. I'll rate this as medium-high. Finally, we have relevancy, or how relevant their animal or furry nature is to the main plot. I hope I don't spoil anything when I explain this movie's very thin plot, but if you're familiar with the games, then you know the main point of conflict: pigs invade the island, steal their eggs, birds fight back, become angry. That's about it. The interspecies conflict, like this, while very simple, is pretty furry. The main theme or moral message probably doesn't connect too much with the fact that they're birds and pigs, but it's at least a reasonable way to show justified revenge. I would have opted for some kind of actual diplomacy or bureaucracy, like the pigs might have tried to wine and dine the judge bird or mayor bird, whatever he is, for a portion of those succulent eggs instead of outright stealing them all. You know, go in for the low ball, try to sell your low brochure or whatever, share resources. Now that would have been a great way to show justified anger, maybe some anti-conformity stuff, especially if the bird ruler actually went with it and the town birds didn't know how to react. See, that would have been your messages about colonialism and consumerist culture, because these pigs are all about partying and distracting. But since this is the kids game being made into a movie, we wouldn't want to have too much thought put into the themes and messages, right? We just have to contend with a cookie-cutter product that panders to both children and their parents. So yeah, the pig stealing eggs from birds has considerable relevance to furriness. So I'm noting this as medium-high. Let's break it down, shall we? A high in caste, and both medium-high in furriness and relevance, that boils down to a final rating of medium-high. Overall, I expected nothing going in, got a few chuckles, proportionally more groans, and then ended up overthinking how it could have been made better. The best part of the film is halfway through once the birds start to wreck shit, but you have to go through all this boring build-up and weak world building and Red commenting about how the island sucks and society sucks. No, it's okay though, it's okay. Maybe you can use it to distract your kids while you take an hour-and-a-half long nap, and then wake up and realize your children were kidnapped by your overtly friendly neighbor that asked to supervise them while they watched the movie, and now you have to destroy that neighbor's entire house and bring your children back, logically. I don't know, up to you. This has been Gregor, Flip'em the Bird Reindeer, with How Furry Is It? I'll be back in the US to visit my family for a little bit, so I don't know when my next video will be. Depends on if I remember to bring my camera and laptop with me. But until then, I will definitely see you later for more anthro analysis and antler antics.